Hey, all right. So we're getting to the end of February, and I know from talking to some of you that this time of the year can be really stressful. So as we're getting into March, something starts to happen that I've now started calling the March effect, which is where you're at the end of Q1. And generally speaking, at the beginning of most every year, I see entrepreneurs are like really motivated, really fired up. You've got big goals, you're excited, and you're getting a lot done, which is amazing. And I absolutely love that. Then something happens towards the end of February where you're looking at your goals and you start to feel a little bit behind, a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit unmotivated. And what can start to happen is when you get into March, you can start to feel really, kind of crappy, but also you can start second guessing some of your goals or changing your projects altogether, changing your plan altogether. And these are all things that I hate because nobody wants to feel like that in their business, but also changing up your strategy, at the end of the first quarter is scary to me. I want people to have a hardcore and supportive plan for the whole year that they're able to follow through with so that by the end of the year they're for sure going to hit their goals. And that's not always realistic, but that's kind of the gold standard. That's what we're going for. So I don't want you switching up your goals, feeling behind and feeling stressed by the time we get to March. So since it's the end of February, I thought I would share with you something that I do with all of my students inside MPQ, which is to have monthly business audits. And I find that this is really valuable because at the end of every month, it's just a great time to reflect, but also to get yourself prepared for the following month and put yourself in a good headspace and have a good plan that you can follow through on. So you don't start the month feeling lost, confused, dazed, whatever it is, right? So I wanted to share with you a little bit of what happens in these monthly business audits. We like to switch it up, but there's a few key things that we do every single month. Now, the first thing is a debrief of this month. So you want to ask yourself a few key questions about your performance this month. And so some things that you want to check in on are your big four. How did I feel? How was I this month when it came to my mindset, my motivation, my productivity, my creativity, like all of those things? You want to check in on your growth. How much did my business grow this month? How did my community grow? How did I grow? How did my team grow? Whatever, right? You want to check in on your nourishment. So how hot is my community right now? And you want to also check in on your offers. And in that way, you really want to check in on your revenue. So you want to say, what was my revenue goal for this month? What is my actual revenue for this month? And be straight up with yourself. I really don't believe in like just coasting through and kind of like hoping you're hitting your revenue goals. Like track it, you know what I mean? Go in and say, my goal was 10K and I made 7. That's that. I'm short 2. Maybe I'm going to change my goal for March, or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm going to reassess and blah, 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 blah. So be realistic with yourself here, be honest, and ask yourself, what was my rev goal? Where am I at now? So that's kind of the debrief. And we ask a few other questions, but those are like some of the key ones that I think everyone could ask themselves right now. And then you can kind of customize that for you in your business. Like maybe you also want to say like, how much freedom did I have? How much, how are my boundaries this month? Like there's a few questions that maybe are very specific to your goal for the year or your like life goal that you want to check in on. Then you want to forecast for next month. So this is where you want to set your revenue goal for next month. This is where you want to set your list growth goal for next month. This is where you want to start creating a plan of action for how you're going to do those things. How are you going to hit that revenue goal? How are you going to hit that list growth goal? Do you have a project goal for next month? And if you do you have a project plan for it or a workflow for it? When are you going to get those things done? These are all really important questions. And the more time you take to think about all these things and to put them in your calendar, and to also it's also really important to ask yourself these questions once you've just done a debrief, because then what you can do is you can say, okay, so here's where I was at last month when it came to my mental health. And one of the reasons is that I took on way too much stuff. I set, way too many project goals for myself. I didn't give myself enough time. And I just It wasn't good for me. I didn't feel creative. I didn't feel fulfilled. I was feeling resentful. So when you're creating your project goal for next month, you're probably not going to do the same thing. And so I think it's a really good time to kind of like make that plan, because you're in a kind of reflective, place. So I think this is really, really valuable. And let me think if there's anything else that I think is super important. The other thing that I think is really good to do, that I always write in our business audits, is what is my number one goal for next month? So even if you have a revenue goal, a project goal, a list growth goal, a social media growth goal, blah, 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 you have all these things. What's the number one goal? What's the main thing that I want to accomplish by the end of the month? This one goal and really having that one focus is so important, because it's really easy to get distracted by all these other things. And especially as entrepreneurs, I always say, like, you can always add more to your list, right? There's always a new project or a fun thing that you could be doing, or a new course you could take, or whatever. There's always things coming up. And so the more you have at the top of your mind, maybe even write that one goal like on a sticky note and pop it on your computer so that you always come back to it. And when you feel yourself going down some rabbit hole, you're like, this is my number one goal for the month. Is what I'm doing right now supporting that number one goal? Yay or nay? And if it's nay, maybe reassess what you're doing. So make sure you know what the number one goal is, and make sure that the strategies, the list growth, the projects, and all that other stuff that you have supports that number one goal too. All right, so that's kind of how I think everybody should do a business audit at the end of the month. And I think this month is a really great month to start to put that in place, because we are not doing the March effect this year. It's not happening. And if you feel that starting to creep in right now, leave me a comment and let me know, because I want to make sure that we can eradicate that and, get you feeling really good, finish up Q1 strong, and continue on with the rest of the year, moving towards your goals and feeling super motivated. All right, I will chat with you next week.